Hey everyone, it's Lawrence here from StudioHawk, and today we're going to be talking about Australia compared to the rest of the world in terms of SEO. Australia, we're on our own little island here with all our little dangerous animals that people are really afraid of, but we still have to do SEO, and it's really interesting to see what the differences are between different countries. And I'm really going to be focusing on the US because that's where a lot of the mainstay SEO, a lot of the tools are based as well, and it's a really cool comparison point to look at in terms of the differences between. One of the major differences is just the sheer size and scale of Australia compared to the rest of the world. We're a lot smaller just in general, and I'm going to show you how that looks right now. One of the biggest retailers in America, as we know, is Best Buy, and they generate, I've just put them into SEMrush, let's see, worldwide, just in the US, 66 million or so organic search traffic per month, and that's pretty enormous. And you look at maybe one of the biggest Australian retailers of similar products, let's say Kogan, we're generating about 2.8, I think even in Australia, 2.7 million. And so that's a lot of traffic for a US website compared to an Australian website. And what that really indicates is just a difference in size of population of people, but also a difference in keyword search volume. And I'm going to show you as well how that looks here in SEMrush. So I've just plugged in the keyword kangaroo and looked at looking at the overall global volume of kangaroo, and specifically in Australia, generating about 40,000 searches per month. Compared to the US, about 135,000 searches per month. And you can even see the differences in difficulty between the two countries. Australia seems that it's a little less difficult to rank for this keyword, not a huge amount, than in the US. So these kinds of differences really indicate a different type of searcher or a different type of intent per country. You can even note the differences between what people are searching or the semantic related questions around kangaroos in SEMrush here. The number one keyword search related to a question around kangaroos is what do kangaroos eat? And the second one is how to draw a kangaroo. Kind of wholesome, kind of cute there. When we look at the US, this is pretty funny when we found this. What do kangaroos eat is similarly the first search. That's a pretty standard thing that people seem to think about across the globe. Are kangaroos dangerous being the second question that people ask? And then you can kind of make that connection between, okay, what is a US user thinking compared to an Australian user? They're thinking about how dangerous that animal is because they don't know any better, and they're searching for that information about kangaroos in the US compared to Australia, where it's just like, how do I draw one of these really cute, magnificent animals? So that's just a couple of the differences. You've got keyword search volume in general, you've got keyword difficulty, and also the types of things that people are searching across those different countries. As a flip example, yesterday was the 4th of July in the States, and it'd be interesting to see what Australians search about 4th of July compared to the US. I've loaded up here about 1,000 searches per month. Question of the day would be, what is 4th of July? And how do Americans celebrate it? As opposed to in America, I'm thinking we're going to see some pretty decent numbers here. About 8,000 searches. Why do we celebrate the 4th of July? And is Costco open on the 4th of July? Again, you're thinking about you're seeing the natural user and what they're trying to get information about on those particular days around those particular searches. And this is a way of you understanding what type of content to create for an Australian user versus an American user, especially if you're conducting international SEO, which is a whole conundrum itself that I'll talk about right now. International SEO, let's say you're an Australian website right now, and we come across this a lot. We have a lot of Australian retailers looking to launch in different countries because they've got good market share here and they're looking to expand and really grow their business internationally. Penetrating the US market is quite difficult from an SEO perspective if you don't have the proper practices and working with specialists that can help you do that. Setting up different domains, international href lanes as well, can be quite an exercise. It's worth it at the end of the day, but when you're conducting SEO in Australia, you really focus on that Australian user and that most likely that .com.au domain, as opposed to the States, you're dealing with some big websites and some big industries, so the competitiveness between the two is a lot different. So having really good international SEO practices when you're transitioning from Australia compared to the US, and you almost have to change your strategy. Like I've just highlighted around these keyword searches, the US, they search differently, a lot more differently to Australian users. So you have to craft, if you're launching in a different country, a lot of really firm strategy around how you're going to access that type of American user, especially if you're just launching for the first time. And in summary of this entire thing about comparing the differences is there's a lot more SEOs in the US. Therefore, there's going to be a lot more advanced practices and advanced research and really hitting that upper echelon of what the knowledge is out there around in the US in that market, because there's just so many more websites, there's so many more SEOs. So in terms of transitioning that knowledge across, Australians, we're a smaller community. There's some great SEOs in Australia, but we take a lot of practices from the US and apply it to Australian type users. Sometimes that works really well. In fact, most of the time it works pretty well. But that also indicates that in Australia, the competitive market is a lot different. If you have a really smart SEO strategy based on some really advanced practices that you've transitioned from the US, you have a pretty good opportunity to rank against some competitors in Australia, because SEO is quite new, it's a smaller community, and you can really make some great gains from an SEO perspective if you're conducting some really smart practices through that.